Today, we'll be talking about a very important question. And that question is how to obtain freedom. Now, this is a very, very simple question, even though it's raised questions from the beginning of time. How is one to get freedom? And you might think, well, the United States is a free country. Wrong. And I think, well, a lot of people in the United States are free. Wrong. A lot of people in the world are free. Wrong. Almost nobody is free, me included. I'm not free, and I don't know if anyone is free. There might be a couple masters of freedom who are actually free of this world and free. But Epictetus tells us the way to obtain freedom is not by satisfying desires, but by eliminating it. So you don't become free by getting all your desires checked off, getting all your desires done, gone, over. Because, newsflash, your desires always keep coming. Desires never stop. You always want more. There's always more desires. You get this, then you want that. You want that. Well, before you can even get that, you want something else. Desires never stop. Desires come and keep coming. And the way to freedom is not by satisfying those, it is by eliminating them altogether. Eliminating your earthly and fleshly desires, detaching from your desires. And this is where freedom is. And as I said, I am not free because I have a lot of desires, a lot of earthly and fleshly desires. And I'm not proud of that. And I try not to, but it's very hard. And I don't think anyone in this world truly is free of desire because it's so built in to the human existence to desire things, to desire more. But if you can eliminate as much desires as you can, you are that much closer to freedom. It's a spectrum. If you can cut down desires and get closer to freedom. You might not be at freedom, but you can be here in terms of over here, you know. So that is how I believe one obtains true freedom. It is not being a slave. Epictetus, if you don't know, was a slave. I think he was a slave for like 20 years, maybe even longer. And he would say that slavery did not obstruct him in freedom. And I'm not saying slavery is good or slavery is anything. And it's not, but Epictetus didn't complain about the fact that he was a slave because it was outside of his control. And he knew if he dwelled on this, freedom would never be his. But if he looked after the matters that were inside of his control, he could obtain freedom. And despite of his flesh being owned by another human being, his soul could not be owned by anybody. His soul was his own. You know, his flesh was on loan, but his soul was not on loan. His soul was completely his own, and his internal was completely his own. When he was a young kid as a slave, his master snapped his leg, and he walked with a limp the rest of his life. And he tried to tell his master that he was going to snap his leg, but he didn't listen. And Epictetus would say that impediments to the body are not impediments to the mind. So a man who walked with a limp the rest of his life from an injury endured during slavery as a young kid said that this did not impede him at all. That did not obstruct him from freedom. And that's just a complete 180 view, I believe, on the view that people have nowadays on what freedom is and what it means to be free and how you get it. And, if you live in the United States, you're free. Probably I don't want to say one of the least free countries, but if you look at how much obesity there is, those people aren't free. They're a slave to their flesh. They're a slave to their hunger, slave to their desires. They're not truly free. If you take, fast food away from them for a year, they are distraught. They're not owned by another human being, but Epictetus, someone who is owned by another human being, I would way rather be than a lot of people who are living nowadays in the United States. And that just goes to say how much internal life truly does play on your attitude and how you look at life and how the things that truly matter affect you, because the flesh does not matter. And and Paul says, the apostle of Jesus Christ says, to flee your fleshly desires. What else are fleshly desires than externals? And that is all Epictetus talks about. Discarding your externals. I believe they're saying the same thing. When I hear externals and I hear fleshly desires, the same things come to my mind. So if you are a Christian and you don't want to read any Stoicism because it's not Christian, I think it's helped me obey the orders of God personally. So, that's up to you. That's just a little side note, but true freedom is not the flesh. Your flesh is on loan. The Bible also says this. And it is not your own. Nothing is your own. You need to give up these desires, detach from your desires. I don't know if it's possible to kill desires altogether. Like I said, we are human beings at the end of the day, and it almost seems like it's embedded into human nature just to desire more and more and more. But if you can eliminate as much desires as possible, as much as you truly can eliminate, I believe you'll be so much better off. And like I said, it's a spectrum. You might not be 100% free, but 90% free is better than 10% free. So, and it starts one action at a time. When you eliminate a desire, it's like putting a stick into the pile of snuffing that desire out. But if you give into that desire, then you put a stick into the pile of the fire, and it builds up. That desire gets more and more and more, and ever much more fuel you give that fire, the harder it's going to be to stop that desire. So you need to not build that fire up. You need to put your sticks in a different pile, and you need to snuff out that fire. And another thing with fires, internal fires of desire, I don't think they ever truly go out. That the coal, the ash is always hot. One stick can always spark the fire again. So you need to be careful. If you have a problem with drugs, then if you can go a year without doing them, but then you do it once, you can be right back into that because that fire started again. And you have to put that fire out quick or it's going to build up out of control. And, I think a lot of people don't understand that. And, they'll snuff their fires out, but then they'll build them right back up because they think they completely snuffed them out. But in reality, those coals are still hot. There's still desire burning there, and it will never go away. So it's a daily, lifelong battle to snuff out the flames of desires. So just think of that. Think about your freedom, and think about if you truly are free. And if you agree with me and think that you aren't, and think that nobody is, start eliminating desires so you can snuff out some flames and you can move to the right on the spectrum of truly being free.